chance of strife. We will survive. Follow tracks all the time. Yeah, stealing nickels and dimes, manipulating the seams that you believe all the time. And you think that they're here to help us all. No chance of that, so God help us all. Before we get out the call. Are you a victor or a victim? Unity is strength, so together we win. Yeah, you live that bright, are just like them. The time is now, yes, so let's begin. With your hands in the air like you don't care. Wave your hands in the air like you don't care. This is a situation across the nation. Some will, some won't. Some stuck in stagnation. Some cry, some lie, some laugh, some sigh, some show that they really love it. Others try. Wave your hands in the air like you don't care. Yeah, wave your hands in the air like you don't care. Wave your hands in the air like you don't care. And you think that they're here to help us all. No chance of that, so God help us all, God help us all, God help us all. We've all fall, keep out the call.
Hey, we're back today. We've got another guest with us. His name is Virtec, and he's come along to have a nice chat with me, haven't you, Virtec?
I have, Karen. And how are you doing, my dear?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And yourself?
Well, I'm all right. I've been hard at work on various music tracks with. Actually, I've been working.
Oh yeah, because we've just played your song.
There was that track that Astral wrote, the Astral Thief. He wrote the lyrics on that. Sent them to me from, well, actually sent them to Tenerife from Denmark, and then 007 in Denmark came up with the bass and drums. Sent those to me in London. I fiddled about with it. We sent it back to and fro a bit, and before you know it, we'd actually come up with that track, Victor or Victim. I always get that the wrong way around. Isn't that terrible, isn't it?
I like it. I put it on my channel.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it sort of sums up the mood we're all in. Are you a victor or are you a victim?
Maybe you're both.
Yeah, well, it's sort of hard to know now. We've all been down, people in the community have been down multiple rabbit holes, and we've researched this and we've researched that. Every time you go down a rabbit hole, you sort of lose sight of the overall picture. But after a while, if you keep at it long enough, you manage to start connecting the dots, as old Ike says. and you can eventually see the whole rabbit warren. Rabbit hole's no good. Rabbit warren's better.
I have
So,
another word for it though, the matrix, and actually we're neos. We're just lots of neos,
yeah,
and we're in this
yeah,
matrix.
yeah, that's a true thing.
But the Warren,
You know, like every time you go down a rabbit hole and you think you've sorted out what's happening, suddenly another veil gets torn off, and what you thought you had completely together is you got to start again. It's like I suppose it's like being at school when you move up to a different year and you were a senior and suddenly you're a junior again. You know?
well, is that because we think we know it all? We always think we know it all, and you realise you didn't. Or even if you did, it's like having a Rubik cube. It's all wrong place. You've got to put it all in the right place, right colours, right.
Well, I think one thing, a poet friend of mine came up with this phrase, which I think is very apropos of this situation, which is always hold your opinions lightly between thumb and forefinger. And that is very necessary, because if you get totally invested in one idea of the truth or another, you can be sure, the only thing you can be sure of actually is that we don't know. So you need to hold your opinions lightly until something else comes up which teaches you more.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I know what you mean. I would put it in that you think you know everything. I remember this hangout with Santos, and it's not news anymore, but he was telling us on this hangout that the sun is Jesus in the sky. And I think there were so many things he was saying, and we were just like, it'd been going on maybe for 2 or 3 hours or something, and we were all a bit choked. I could feel it all through this hangout. Everybody was choked because it was like,
You talk about Santos Bonacci.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
something else. It's all different, like there's more. And it's like, where does it stop?
Well, you know, like the one thing that I will say about whole flat earth thing is the phrase that I can get behind is that it is observably flat, because no one else, you know, none of us have been any further than the 60th parallel since 1959.
Do you know the one thing I don't understand that people don't get, which really kind of proves it, because they're always talking about curvature. There's two things. They never go into the rotation and how different it would be, like going from England, say, to Miami. Yeah, how, you know, you'd be going in different rotation speeds and things. That's one thing. It's never discussed in schools. You think by 2020 we'd be talking about that. We're supposed to be sci-fi and going to the moon and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, the education system is totally linked in with the agenda now, and that includes the NASA agenda. So they're not going to tell you any truth at all. You know, as Alex says, you know, what's the Flat Earth Guru music?
Mm.
You don't let them take your mind, you know, and that's a great track, that is. And the video on it, you know, shows all the kids in the classroom, huge, great globe there, you know, and it's just indoctrinated in people from birth. So you haven't got a chance, have you?
Well, I think once you get some of the truth, what it does is it sort of makes you sort of angry or angry. You know, you get different feelings and then you start looking into it more. But, you know, for a while, you just have to keep watching it because you're just so blown in that even when you know that you still have to go and watch a bit more. But then it comes to this point where you think, hang on, look, this person's saying this and then they're saying that. And these people are saying nothing is the way that they say it is. It just is.
No, it took me a long time, like back in, I don't know, well, when it actually happens, when JFK was assassinated. And I actually moved to California in '93. And I remember going to this political meeting there. They were all talking about, you know, this, that, and the other. I didn't realize that Santa Cruz was the center of Agenda 21 then. I was still an innocent hippie at that point. But anyway, I said to them, by the way, aren't you interested in what happened to JFK? And they looked at me like in horror and completely changed the subject. So I thought, oh, that's funny. And then I was still in California when 911 happened. I remember sitting looking at the TV, watching the supposed plane hitting the second tower live. And that afternoon on Highway 1, all these people were tearing up and down in trucks with about, 5 stars and stripes in the back of each one, and racks of guns on the back. And you could say they were roaring up and down, who do we shoot? Who do we shoot? And the vibration was so amazing. So from that point on, the whole thing really started revving up. And it didn't take me very long to actually see a hole in it, because I've been involved in 3D graphics. And I saw some masks slipping on the TV footage. I went, what's that? So I actually clued into the fact that they'd been using CGI.
Do you know what, right? For me, right, and this, it sort of clogs into the way that they've changed everything so much, because, you get done for hatred, or, or whatever it is, these kind of things, and it's just not true, but that's what they use to get rid of your videos sometimes when it's not happened. But suddenly, this one day, it said hoax 9/11, and I thought, what? Because we've got is that replay constantly of it all happening over and over and over and over again. That's what you're watching, it over and over again. It's just like I did. And then when I saw that,
and then you get to the point, well,
when I got to the hoax bit,
it was taken down, and it definitely wasn't done by
yes,
sitting in a cave in Afghanistan with a cell phone.
3 years, I think. And I actually think that my psychic says that there's some stuff still there, and one day it'll be uncovered, and then they'll know what really happened. And people are walking over it every day and don't even realise, because they're just not realising what's under the pavement.
Yeah.
But that's another time, isn't it? Another place.
Yeah. So after that, then, it was follow the money. So I did follow the money, and that went down a few rabbit holes, which we're not allowed to talk about.
It's insanity. Come on. Didn't we all believe in space? And it looked kind of real. It did. But when you look at it now, you think, how could I ever have believed it was real?
I know.
It's that bad.
And that's for SpaceX. They've really, take the biscuit, they do.
That's all right. I did my own little one on that as well. David Wise put one out, and I put my own little thick bit on that. What it was is, in the middle of it coming down, they cut the footage together. And not just that, when it lands, because no one saw it land. They were waiting. They cut over. When he comes back, it's on the platform.
But, like having been involved in building complex 3D stuff and animating it, it's all so obvious to me.
What's the really weird thing? In front of you, this thing's wobbling away. This is supposed to be NASA with high-tech equipment, and this thing is wobbling away. And then what I noticed was that it's leaning a bit to the left. But when you look at the platform, because it's in water, it's moving up and down and moving. So the rocket should be doing the same thing, but the rocket didn't move.
I don't even bother to, I do look at the details, but the whole thing is so obvious. I just go, oh, God, next.
I know. And the thing is that they've made all these games for us, and everybody's on their Xboxes playing them, and they still don't notice.
Well, one thing I find quite interesting at the moment is how lots of different energies and stories are all playing out at the same time in a very weird way. Like they're, like
you said Warren. I'd have put it like it's like an octopus, and there's so many arms and legs.
More how astrology is moving into an amazing rare amount of conjunctions and eclipses, all finalizing on December the 21st on the winter solstice, when there's going to be like a conjunction of is it Jupiter and Pluto and Venus? I have to look it up. Anyway, I have astrologers who I look up to, but I'm actually,
So what do you think that means for us then?
well, you see, that's all coming to a head, and I've never really been dogmatic Christian or anything, but it's amazing how Revelations is all feeding into it as well. And then, you know, you've got the whole.
You mean with Easter and everything and how that was all planning out? Like,
No, the end times and you know, St. John the Divine, the Revelations of St. John the Divine.
can I say it is the end times? Because the world is basically still shut down.
Yeah, but that's just a detail. There's other stuff going on that's over and above the head of
Well, I
the
wondered
world.
whether, like I said, that video I put out, whether there's a big, I don't want to say very much because we're going to put there's something else going on at court. And that's why they can't move forward with all these businesses. It doesn't matter. There's banks, there's all sorts of things in there. So that's why nearly everything is shut up.
Well, I'm not sure if I believe that or not. You know?
No, but it would make sense, though.
No, I think it's a financial reset. And they're going to have the 0.01%. And
oh, yeah, it's a reset.
And then no middle class is getting wiped out. All the middle class businesses are not going to survive all this. And it's just going to be Amazon and the piglets.
I'm not sure about that, though. I thought complete disaster, but because of the way they've shelved the money out and because benefits out and because banks have stopped the interest and because now you can get delays and while we're in this, you've got time to pay the bills and it's all like, sounds like it's pretty damn sorted to me. This is planned.
Yeah, except have you noticed when you go into the food store that everything is going up by leaps and bounds every day? So the value of the money that's getting handed out is going down and
yeah,
down.
because we've been devalued. We've been completely devalued.
So it might look.
You know what? It does. It just reminds me.
Money, but if that money doesn't buy as much, then they're not, are they?
Used to go to Turkey, and everything you dealt with is millions. And then they didn't devalue, but they wanted to be part of Europe, so their economy. So they decided to take all the noughts off. So when I went as a millionaire, I was a millionaire. But when I went as without the noughts, it was like almost being here there.
Yeah, that reminds me. The first time I went to Italy, and they had these huge, great big 10,000 lira notes. They'll probably go back to that shortly at the rate.
It is very strange, isn't it? Because we've gone through this whole process. What you're talking about, we've had Bin Laden. We've had this whole process of what we thought was real. We've had Gulf Wars. Do you remember? And the weirdest thing was that they were saying that when these people were trekking across the sand, that they'd have a McDonald's van hooked up behind.
Oh. Ever since I saw what happened with 911, and I took that on board, I haven't believed a thing ever since. I had really.
I never realised it was that bad, though. I didn't, like you get, like you say, it's into the rabbit hole, or you're starting to wake up, and you get so far.
When you suddenly realise that it not only is a government not on your side, they're actually attacking you. That's a big wake-up call, that is.
Yeah, and also I've put out this stuff. What it was is, for years they've been telling us how terrible that the Russians have been treated. You probably live a better life there, but how terrible it all is. And actually, what they've done to the Russians, they've done to us. And we're like in a concentration camp. We're looking at that thing that I put out before. We're living in a it's a concentration camp we're living in. This is boot camp.
Well, not yet. No, it's not yet, but it's getting there rapidly. Yeah, so I don't know about wearing a mask on the bus.
But this QC has said that it's inhumane. It needs to go to the health court first. And that actually, we already know that you breathe in more carbon dioxide and the rest of it, well, they're still promoting on the 16th of June, where we've actually supposed to have come through it and we're supposed to be lifting off this thing. So everything's starting to slowly open up.
On the 14th, it's fine. And suddenly on the 15th, it's the virus. Ridiculous. Anyway, I got put a call into my doctor's, and I'm waiting for an appointment, a telephone appointment, of course, in which I'm going to demand a certificate of exemption.
Oh yes, explain more. You were telling me about this the other day.
Well, the squeaky wheel gets oiled. Huh? So I'm squeaking.
Well, if you don't want to actually say, then can maybe.
No, I'm busking it. I'm just going to get hold of her and say, look, I've spent a lot of time cleaning out my sinuses with salted water and colloidal silver, and I don't want to reinfect myself immediately. Thank you very much. Huh? So I also don't want to get poisoned with carbon monoxide, which is what happens when you wear a mask and you don't get enough oxygen. And it has been proven, even the NWO has said that the only people who should wear them are like doctors doing operations or dentists. So, which is fair enough. I can see that.
Do you know what my one hope is, right? This is what my one hope is. It goes back to this case that I started off with, the Watts case, where this guy murdered his wife. This is where I was entering it as the Unscrambled channel. And what it was is I was just heartbroken because there's quite a few people being nasty about this person who'd been killed and her children had died so horribly. And they were sort of this middle-class family and etc., etc. And then by the end of it, the whole thing was just completely different to what we've been told. But it's got millions of people watching. Millions. And then I think because they give us stuff and they take all these polls or however they do it, they believe that the people now are swayed so they can carry on with their games until when it's actually happening, like right now, maybe we're not playing the game or something, that people are actually a bit more aware than they thought they were. Because actually, like it's okay when you're watching someone else lose something. It's very different when it actually happens to be you.
Well, the thing that really gets me is like these stories of like little girls in the play yard and they have to sit in their little square box and they're only allowed to throw a ball, but they're not allowed to catch one, and they're not allowed to talk to their friends. And
my little granddaughter has gone back to that.
That is such that these kids are going to be traumatized by that for life.
Do you know what is also really strange? Listen, they pick
in bulk.
They picked the youngest ones as well. They're like, I think 2 years are going back, but they've picked the youngest ones to go back first, not the older one down.
Yeah,
what I mean is, they've started to indoctrinate the youngest ones with a mask right from now.
Well, I think the general population, like when you start attacking the children like that, that's enough. Game's up, man. That's the red line. Don't attack the children like that.
Yeah, but you know what? I didn't know it would happen like this, but I started to look up things and I realised that this whole thing somewhere in the 1800s, when we were all sort of rowing over to America, what it was is we were greeted with, well, you're being put in quarantine, and they took the children. And then by the time you get to the Second World War, Hitler did the same thing. He quarantined the adults and took the children. So this whole thing we've been put in has been happening for a really long time.
Well, it's sort of, the binary system. That's why this whole thing with Q is like, there's this whole thing about dark to light. So in the binary system, it's going to be saved by Q and Donald Trump. And that's all part of the Masonic system, which is to trick people by making things so bad, and then a savior comes along. And that is just the other wing on the same vulture. Just the same way.
It's coming from was what people don't realize is it's coming from the same places through the media.
Whereas the Most High is just light. There's no darkness. Whereas this whole thing that they're trying to kid us.
You know what's the most upsetting is that everybody believes that the press just turn up and start filming. No, it's all orchestrated. the press are
Oh,
there to film it for us. It's
yeah,
not
well,
it's not happening by
you know,
accident. You know,
no.
when they go, oh, can I ask that question from that reporter? It's all part of this thing. It's all set up for us. Nothing is, nothing is by accident. Nothing is real. Nothing is live.
Well, I haven't seen it, but apparently people were saying even Prince Charles the other day wasn't the real Prince Charles. It was a stand.
Can I just say, I was looking at some footage when Trump came over. It's on the channel. And what it was is that maybe people don't do this kind of thing, but the bit that interested me was when the cameras were flashing. I thought, oh, I saw something. So I slowed it down. And every time there was the flash, so the cameraman's going click, 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 click. When it flashed, there were different people underneath the pictures, completely different people. So Camilla, Charles, and Trump, because his wife's got her head, the back of her head too, so you don't see her face at that point. But those three are not the people they are when it's not flashing. So why would you go that far to have different people and then superimpose the others on top?
I don't know.
Why
There
would
was
you
that
want?
weird,
It's like a
weird-
joke. It's like a joke.
there was
It's
that,
like a joke on us
that
that we
video of
didn't
Boris.
notice it. You didn't notice it at full speed, but when you slow it down, it all changes. It's like a joke.
Yeah, well, I reckon, the people that are woke, that they know were woke, they're just laughing at us, man. Sitting,
Do you know what
sitting on the
do you know what
sofa with a
I think
bottle
my
of
greatest
champagne,
find,
enjoying
like
themselves, laughing.
Virtec, my greatest find, right, was, and it was by accident. It's all by accident. It's just when I go to the footage, there it is. I see it. I don't know why it is, but I do. Slow the footage down, and there it is. And what it was is they were outside 10 Downing Street, and Boris, I think he was, well, it was like, because when he won the election, it was getting on for Christmas, so there is a Christmas tree there. And what it was is they suddenly have the camera, so there's two car widths from one side of the road to the other, so two vehicles can come outside 10 Downing Street. That's it. And they're on the other side of that. So you know the distance, to sideways, two cars. And then suddenly there's a cameraman, and you can see the cameraman then now looks like, if you were going to put it in proportion to Boris, he's now about 12 foot tall, and Boris is about 3 foot. And what it is that he's now not standing just off the pavement onto the road. He looks like he's standing in a field. Like it looks like he's about 10 foot away from the pavement when he should only be a couple of steps. And then the whole background, like as they're panning round, you can, slowing it down jerks, it just shows you where they've cut, and it's all sets, and that those people weren't standing there. So it's a bit like, how many people do we want in the group? 10, 12? Okay, we'll stick 12 in. Okay. And they're all moving around and everything. Right, we've got them lined up, and then Boris, and then they don't put, and it's like, why would they have the cameraman looking like 12 foot tall, but Boris is about 3 foot tall?
Well, did you see that bit of TV of Boris where his face was breaking up and his eyes were dropping and stuff?
Yeah, I put it on the channel.
Was that on your channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
I'm not saying I'm the only one that's done it, but I was just like, people don't understand. It was only his head that was doing it. He had a background. The background wasn't doing it. If it was a glitch in the film, it would go end to end. But it's only his head that's doing it.
That's like some of the beams coming out of the sun on the Angels site recently. And you can tell they're real because they go behind the trees.
So why would they want to do this? Why would they, like, it's been going on, I think, from probably the 50s, 60s, because I've seen other footage, maybe the 70s. Yeah, they were doing the same sort of thing. Now I was looking at this footage, the same sort of thing was happening. It's like, it's really hard to get your head around. It's not something that happened yesterday or they've just started doing to us. They've been doing it to us for a long time. And then you think, well, look about this.
Hundreds of years, but then and then that's the next rabbit hole that I went down, and what when you get into the fact that maybe all the dates of history have been changed as well. And
yeah, War of the Roses. I'm going back to. I'm going back to that one. That's just before Edward IV. Something big happened then. Linny and Lee were looking at it today. So everybody's looking at Edward IV, but it's actually the one before. It's where he comes from, his dad or whatever, uncle, wherever. Henry V. Henry V.
His dad was off fighting the French, and his mum had a scene with a bowman from.
Yeah, but it's before that. I think it's going to be the War of the Roses, because that one got deposed.
Yeah, but the thing, this John III, he's on the line.
Yeah, so the next one's illegitimate.
Well,
they put an illegitimate
all of them up that line are.
Yeah.
So he hasn't got a look in. Anyway, he's very fishy anyway, that John III.
Yeah. Do you know what? I did think
Michael doesn't want to do it. Except I was on a stream the other day and someone said to me, "Oh, Michael died last year." Do you know if that's true? He did have 5 children though, so that's all right.
I don't know about that one. I just have tried to say on my channel that if anybody was going to be king, it would have been him. He doesn't want to do it, and that's as far as I've got. I don't know any more information.
But I think they've all fucked off into a bunker somewhere, either in this country or somewhere else, and nothing's going.
Do you know what, Virtec? Do you agree with me that okay, we're in this, whatever you want to call it, planedemic, I call it, but the Queen should be in Buckingham Palace right now.
Yeah.
She's the Queen of the country right now. She should be in Buckingham Palace. So why is she in Windsor Castle?
America, you think? Yeah, right. They're going to beetle off to wherever's safe. For all we know, they're going to crank up the 5G next week. Yeah?
And James asked me to look that up because it should be a half mask. She's not there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the full mask.
I expect you believe the BBC as well. Come on.
Do you know, Virtec, when me and Marilyn went to London, the really weird thing was, because we were walking up towards Buckingham Palace and walking past the park, and then suddenly I said, look, there's a great big camera. It looks like an ITN camera. It's a big camera. So we go in there and I go, what are you filming? And they go, well, we're not. We're waiting on a solicitor call, because obviously someone said you can't film till we check whatever it is. And he's filming the people in the park. And I said, well, why are you filming that? It's all happening at Buckingham Palace, blanked out windows. They're talking about kings now, why are you filming the people? He said, I don't know, but I'm not here for that. I'm here to film this. So his camera was pointing the complete opposite way. It was a bit bizarre, really. We're going up there and he's got the camera facing the other way.
It's opposite world. Like he's trying to catch people from not social distancing. Meanwhile, behind him, in the opposite direction, is the real news. It's opposite world,
Yeah. It's most bizarre.
Well, anyway, I've been quite interested recently, between Santos and APV Angel, this whole thing of the world being in a toroidal magnetic sort of donut, and it really makes sense. But what little I'd learned about observably flat, when you see that, you go, oh my God, and I suppose once you stop learning, it's time to go, isn't it, really?
I have to say, Virtec, on my Sun and Moon group, we sort of had all those people there. But the map makers, because there was FPV at Angel Underground, there was series on the ground, the map of what we lived. Then there was Matt Jerome doing the land to the up. And then there was, oh my God, I can't remember his name right now. He did, I don't know, it's annoying now because if I said his name, you probably know who he is. But anyway, he did the toroidal thing right the way around it. And we had them all there. And then it just suddenly, and then we just have researchers and people on the channel. I've gone off what shape we are. It's all about the people for me now.
Well, I agree with that. But the fact that Santos backs it up is pretty strong.
Yeah, because we live in this magnetic electrical place. It's got to be, otherwise, because that's why. I mean, when you've woken up, you know these things, but you know, you don't even realize growing up that you've got an electrical pulse in your heart and in your head, and you know, there's other things going on, and that probably the waves are made by another electrical current, but we can get in that one. But you couldn't go near
I'll tell you the
can't go
first
near
thing
a hurricane, you know? It's different electric, but
first thing that blew me away about our own senses versus actual science was when I was about 15 or 16 in the physics lab, and the physics professor there, he said, well, this is a sine wave, and you saw this sine wave going up and down, and it was playing A or whatever. And then he said, what do you think happens if you double the speed the sine wave is going at? And we all went, oh, we don't know. So he switches it on, and suddenly, boom, it's the do, oh, oh, an octave. And I, from a little boy, had been in like church choirs and was really into music from a young age. And suddenly what that showed me that was my ears, which could hear an octave so perfectly, were actually hearing a truth demonstrated by this oscilloscope. And I always say oscilloscope, oscilloscope, thank you. And that was amazing. It suddenly, in my teenage head, it went bong, wow, your senses are the truth. And really, with all, you know, investigating flat earth or anything else,
you know something else, I've got some.
is your senses.
You know, when people start to wake up, they do something, and I don't think a lot of people realize is that in the 60s, I was one of them. They decided to pilot this thing called ITA. It was to take the joined out bits. So you didn't have joined up letters. You could use the backs of letters to make other letters. So you could have two letters in one letter. And they trained thousands and thousands of this through this ITA thing. And then, for instance, then the junior bit, I wasn't even at school, you know, it was before school, that one there, nursery. Then I went to the school, they had not been taught or trained on ITA at all. So it was like I'd been taught French, and then I had to go and sit in an English class. And then there's a whole generation of us that have got problems, and we're thick and we're stupid. And we weren't. We were made artificially dyslexic for a system. No one communicated these things to the schools. And I found quite a few people like me.
Yeah, well, when I was taught proper writing. When
I didn't learn to read and write until I was 11. 11.
The other day, I had to write something out on a piece of paper for this guy who was much younger than me. And he looked at it and he said, oh my God, your handwriting. He was like, it was like he was seeing something. Well, he was seeing something out of the past, me. He was just blown away. And I used to have very good handwriting, and even now it's still okay. But compared to your average youth at the moment, it's like something out of the museum. It's really sad, you know? We're on a downhill struggle, you know?
Well, I was saying, like, before we came on here, when did you ever start to think that you were old? You know, like,
I personally,
generations.
I might be getting on a bit, but I've really experienced. I just built a really powerful computer 3 months ago. I'm busy mastering music, making music. I'm more active and alive now than I have been for a long time. So, you know, age is how you feel. No?
Yeah, I could say, yeah, I could agree with you there.
And
You know, with that, my journey's a little bit different. You know, I'm with someone that's a bit younger than me, and yeah.
Well, as they say, use it or lose it.
No, he's the kind of boy where you take your shoes off and run around the field with no shoes on.
No, I love Lee. He's got a great spirit, Lee has.
He does that. He definitely has a big spirit.
So if you're listening, Lee, good one, brother. Yeah, I'm sure he'll give it a listen. Anyway, So, what do you think is going to happen next, Karen?
I don't know. Well, I actually, I've gone down that bit where there's a big panic, like, oh my God, world recession and that. And then I just thought about it with the way everything's going and how Tesco's and these other places can stay open, but everything else is shut. It's a bit like Trump and all that lot. They went, 1, 2, 3, 4, right, everybody ready? Everybody's economy sound. We're all ready now. We've got the money's in place. We can look after ourselves. And they open the curtains and they go, we're in the deepest recession we've ever been in, lockdown, and it never happened because behind the scenes everything's all right. I mean, look, every day NASA took 57 million a day out of the economy, supposedly, but Europe and the rest did have aerospace programs, so they would have taken money. It isn't just even that. When I was looking at the footage, I thought, this is just made up. It's almost like a child has done it. Let's put that person in, but their aura or what's around them is a different color to the one next to them. And now you're looking at them and they're like cartoons. And you realize it's going on even when you were watching European law. Anything you watched about Europe, it was the same thing. It was all not real. Nothing was real.
It's true. There's quite an interesting website. I don't know if you've come across it, called New Earth. Is it Natalie Ivanova? She's a
Not
Russian
sure.
lady who lived in India for a long time. And she's talking about, what's his name? This Russian who's apparently got most of the gold in the world. And he's setting it up when everything crashes to actually come up. Yeah, his name is Alexander Paramonov. And you can check it out on the New Earth channel on YouTube, Newearth, one word. And that's really interesting. New prophecies from Alexander Paramonov.
Can I just say, our whole history is changing right now. We've got 2 kings waiting in Thingy Bob say. I don't know if the other one died or not, but you've got like Anne Boleyn wasn't beheaded after all now. It's like, how did we get here after all those films they made us watch and all those programs? It wasn't just films. We got series about them. What the hell? That she didn't get beheaded now.
Along the path of the agenda that I've investigated, we've got to the stage where the plan is to say one thing one day and the opposite thing the next day. So everyone is totally confused about what's right and what's wrong and what's left and what's right. And oh my God, maybe 2 + 2 doesn't.
You know how they've done it to us anyway, because I do remember as a kid, I know where I was. I was in my mum's kitchen and they said Mandela had died. And then other people have said that they had ceremonies at school, rah-de-rah, and then we didn't notice. He was then president.
Don't you mean Mandela?
Well, it's really weird because in the first one, Willie Mandela.
That's what Owen Benjamin jokes, because he's not totally convinced about the Mandela effect.
In the first one, Willie Mandela got everything because she was still married to him. In the second one, she got nothing because he divorced her.
Well, she was a piece of work, like putting tyres around people and pouring petrol on them.
Again, is any of it real? It's all part of the story. We've just been doing it to us for so long. But what I'm saying is today, it's different when you watch it. Like, I started off last year, and then suddenly you're watching this Crime Watch Daily things, and every day they're showing you through like a reporter talking that this is what happened, and this is how he killed her, and this is what happened, and then you've got a court scene, and then he goes to prison or he goes to death row and all that. And I thought, when I worked it out, oh my God, even that's involved. Prisons are involved. Everyone's involved in this. The top ones, maybe the bottom ones don't know anything about it, but I'm not even sure if there is anybody on death row because it's just all a game. But
well, I think the bottom line, Karen, is this: that we are being asked to stand up for the truth. And, like if you take the mark of the beast and you accept the vaccinations and you put on the mask, then you are accepting the sign of the beast.
Again, on this channel,
we're all going to die anyway, but this is a big test. It's the life quiz. And maybe the pearly gates, there's an element of truth to that.
On this channel, I'd like to say that I have put a video out saying, even if it didn't get to court or whatever, it was showing that they had not looked at vaccinations or anything. They had not been testing them for 32 years, which is just absolutely incredible. You know, we're supposed to be going to the moon and all that, you know, and we don't test our medications.
Yeah, but the point is, Karen, for everyone who's listening, you are here playing through this movie of life, but you are a soul that is eternal. And this is a test. And it's time to either stand up and be counted on the side of good, or be fated to come back as an arthritic water rat.
Also, this nurse also explained that because of the way that they give you these medications and vaccinations, that they're replacing them with sort of man-made stuff now, because they're having to place it all together to make it all. And it's like, what? And basically, because these things divide themselves, what they're actually doing is injecting you with something that will probably, one way, if you keep getting this stuff, give you cancer.
Well, the human body is a wonderful thing, and it has lots of defenses.
I mean, that sounds like we're in a concentration camp.
Karen, it has wonderful defenses. If you eat something, it goes in one tube, down through a load of tubes, and out the other end. If you breathe something, you've got lots of hairs and this, that, and the other in your nostrils to defend you against the outside. But if you break the skin barrier and plunge a needle directly into somebody, you're breaking the natural immune system barriers. And therefore, stuff is going to get into your system that could be incredibly harmful to you. Whereas if you just eat stuff, and if necessary, take the right herbs and things, and let your body decide what it needs and it doesn't need for its immune, you're going to be fine. But as soon as people start sticking needles into you,
You know, I wondered, but it is a bit crazy. I don't have a real answer for it, because it's now 4 or 5 months ago. You'd go to casualty and you have to wait 4 hours to see a doctor, and now you could get in within about 10 minutes because there's no one there. And it's a bit like, some people went for tests and then they didn't feel very well, and I was thinking, well, they don't realize that whenever you go in for anything now, it's just on the end of the needle.
I'm not. I keep well away from allopathic medicine.
I mean, you just don't want anything. It's not responsible. And honestly, like, for instance, I know that when you have like an antidepressant, what it does is it partakes you from yourself. It blocks out any of your emotions. It stops you dealing with everything, which is not very good, I don't think. But what it is if you stop taking it, you start feeling. I'm not saying that's why people take it, because they don't want to feel. But it's better to live in a life of colour than black and white board.
I have a very
which is
sad
why
story. And that is when I was in Santa Cruz, I got divorced, and my eldest stepson, who I was very close to, ended up being sent to a psychiatrist, and then he left. And the psychiatrist had given him these pills, antidepressant pills. And he went off elsewhere, and then he got depressed because his girlfriend had left him. And he thought, oh, I've got this box of pills. So he took out the pills and started taking them. And within 3 days, he'd hung himself, Karen.
that's really sad.
It is absolutely...
I'm really sorry.
It's the most tragic thing, and it's absolute proof that those things are murderous. Those pills, man.
Do you know what? Like, you live and you learn, don't you? But I was much younger then. I was getting divorced. And what it is that I'm likely, if I don't like something, to stand up and say something, and it might not be the best place when I'm actually trying to sort out my divorce, one of my divorces. So I went to the doctors and I said, I just want something so I don't feel anything. And it worked. What it was is, it didn't mean that I wasn't extremely upset sitting there, but it stopped me wanting to jump up and do those things. I just didn't want to do it. I felt nothing.
Well, exercise.
So that's what those things do. But imagine living on those and then facing this world that you live in. And It's quite hard
Apparently,
living in colour.
the simple cure is exercise, meditation, and green stuff.
Yeah, it is quite hard living in colour, but it's better to live in colour because once you get to colour, you start realising it's not, because everything's black and white, isn't it? And I said it's okay when it's happening to someone else. And I started watching this Crime Watch Daily, and then I realised that what they were doing was they were making us believe that we were these barbarian animals that couldn't help but slaughter each other and go to prison. But actually, that's what they want you to believe, because actually we're just a very peaceful set of people. Look what happened. We surrendered overnight. We went to complete lockdown without one soldier.
Well, you know what? I wonder.
Do you know what I mean? They've told us that we're all these things, but actually, and something mustn't have happened because we're all still quite peaceful weeks in. And then guess what? We're going to get weeks more of it. It's like we're in a concentration camp.
Well, when you're born, you're a perfect little being as a baby. And from the moment you're born, you start getting propagandized first by your parents, and then by the school, and then by the village, and then by the county or state if you're in America. And all these decisions are made for you. You're not allowed to make them for yourself. It's, how a good person behaves. And you develop all these buffers to avoid the pain of the fact that the truth is obviously being hidden from you. Babies know, babies get it immediately. And so as you get older, because you've been put through all these ways of avoiding the truth, sometimes it takes a real jolt.
Do you know what they've done to us? It's called,
you up. You've got to maybe lose your home, lose your child, lose a family.
It's called healing the shame that binds you. That's what they give us, shame.
Well,
it's called shame. But that's more psychological, isn't it? But you know what? I never thought, until I watched this guy, Richard D. Hall. He's not a flat earther, but I do like a lot of what he said. But then there's a few things I'm not sure about. But anyway, he did this, he showed me one day, he had Ed Miliband. He said the same thing 5 times, but nobody noticed it. He just changed the words around. And then what he was saying was that Russia had this subversion thing, and then Yuri Bozanov, or whatever his name was, he went over to America, and actually what they did was they just changed it a bit and was subversing us instead.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that years ago, actually.
Yeah, you think, but once you start putting it all together, because I heard that years ago, and it's like suddenly, even if it's that person, but he showed what's happening, and that you think, oh, that so fits into what's happening now.
Well, as I say, it's expanding out of the rabbit hole into the rabbit warren.
It's a bit hard to know what to do because, there's this sort of martial law thing hanging over us. But you know what? There's a couple of things, maybe because you're quite into all this. By accident, because this stuff comes into my feed box. On YouTube, I go to the homepage, and then there was Boris, and he was having this speech at the UN, and he was talking about our rights there, and I thought, what? He was talking about pluralism, and when you look it up, it means doing things with each other. It's just another way of using, it's like New World Order being used, but you just don't use those words, but you're saying the same thing. But he was talking about how great London was, and we had every tech you could think of, and he was saying brown tech, green tech. It didn't matter what tech it was, we've got it, and we're amazing. So his big speech. And then I caught Trump talking about millions and billions, and he was saying, they were saying, they don't like what's happening with China. It's all China, 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 China. And we already know that their death rate and everything is so small. How could they blame China? Everybody else's death rates and figures are so high. It's almost like, didn't they play ball or something? Because,
anyone that you can see is not them talking about.
Oh, no, I know that they're all part of the game, but it's a bit like, how could you blame China publicly when they got 0.03 of the percentage per whatever it is, and England's up there on 15% and America's up there? It's like, what are they telling us? And people can't tell the difference. Like, if China was the big problem, they would have been at the top, not at the bottom. It's like, they're laughing at us and you don't get it.
Yeah, well,
On top of making these weird things, because also that's a bit freaky. I was doing Michael Hutchinson, and what it was is Bob Geldof was in Michael Hutchinson, and then there was a couple of other people. And then when the video went out, people said they saw other people in him. And I think what they do is they just put them through them, because they want you to think other things. So you're always confused. Was it him? Did he do that? Was it the other one? Oh no, it was him. And they're, but anyway,
that's what I was saying. They're really into like one thing one day, one thing the next day. Get quite a few, like shills out there on the internet, putting out all sorts of different theories, and then how you be able to, how can you pick the truth out of all these different theories?
what's your take on this? Listen, when I talk to Americans, those that are into Trump, they always say, no, no, no. I'm going, look, if he was a truthful person, one of the first things he would have done was reverse that bit where the media can't lie to us. Because if he don't have the truth, we never have anything. Oh, no, no, he can't do any of that till he gets into his second state of presidency. And I'm thinking, what the hell are we living in where we have to continue to lie now? And then suddenly he goes, hang on a minute. Now I'm going to say, right, media, you can't lie to us anymore.
Yeah, right. Well,
Do you see what I mean?
yeah,
It's never ever going to happen because they're all in on it together.
absolutely. You don't get into that position. What was it? Bill Hicks. He had, he was asked, what do you think of the presidency? He said, oh, yes, the president. Well, you get elected as president, and they take you to the White House, and they take you down to this basement, and there's this cinema screen, and there are the 12 people who put all the money up, sat behind you to get you elected, and you're sat on this chair, and suddenly, here comes a view of Daley Plaza that you've never seen before, and oh my God, what happened to the guy sitting in the back? Yeah, and the president looks up and says, oh, what would you like me to do? Because, like, if you didn't
You know what? If he was a
before
real man, he would have said what he sort of people would believe because he's even got his own flipping plane. He knows that we're not aboard.
Oh, it's not even worth, it's a waste of time even talking about it. Really. It's obvious, isn't it? To anyone who's at all woke, it's like, I can't believe this whole Q thing, man.
I can't. I've never followed it. I can't. I just know that it's not right. I don't know. Like, people say they're empaths and all that, and I don't even. This is not about being big-headed. I find quite often it's a curse for me because it happens when I don't want it to happen. But anyway, I'm a bit psychic and an empath, so I don't know. I see life very differently.
Well, I always find this quote very interesting, which was made by William Casey, the ex-CIA director. I can't remember, back in the 70s or 80s. And this quote is, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. That's coming from an ex-CIA director.
Do you know what I find really weird? I mean, everybody should do their own research, but it was a bit like, and I know you've probably seen it, but I was just looking at, it was with Lee and it was Elizabeth I, and they put up this map with this Tartaria bit. And then when you looked at it, you could see that Greenland, you looked at England and you looked at Greenland, and I thought, oh my God, Greenland is only a little tiny bit bigger than England. But behind it was the Four Rivers. And now that is Greenland. So the North Pole's in the middle of this thing that they're calling Greenland, which actually is Greenland at the bottom where the people live. Then there's some mountains, and then we don't know what's behind there because we can't go there. But there is the Four Rivers. And it's like all those years, everybody's searching for it. I see it suddenly. But it's really weird how this...
Well, basically, we can only believe what we can see on the end of our P900 or our P1000. Beyond that, who knows? Huh?
This place we live in, we're either like in some computer system, but we don't realise it, which is a bit like Jacob's Ladder sort of thing, that film. That's what that reminds me of. Or Tron, if you like. Or this is supernatural here. I mean, I've thought about it, when you realise everything's electric, the stars, the sun, the moon, even if it's a bit different because one's cold, one's hot, and all that. And then you've got this view of line, and then our eyes play us up anyway because they're 360. And it's a bit like that's 360, but our minds might go into all these other dimensions. It's a bit weird to put us so dimensionally there in our brain that we can't. It's never going to match up because we can't see those dimensions. We can only think them.
Yeah, well, art tends to get into the realms that science cannot. Yeah, I actually, funnily enough, I came across this old song of mine, which I think I might put out soon. But the first words are, "Coincidence can pass you by, leave you wondering the reason why. No magic ever captures you on a moonlit night. A flashing eye, a searching glance, certainties in a game of chance. Nothing that isn't real ever lasts."
That's very good. I like that.
It goes on, but that actually is, it sort of captures the moment in a way, because science leaves out magic. We're not meant to know everything. We're meant to feel the magic of our life.
Do you know what's really weird though? It's a bit like I was with Lee the other day and Supertramp's LP came up, and then you're looking at it, and then instead of it just being a picture, it turns into a story in front of you.
Huh.
Do you understand what I mean? Like when you're more awake or whatever, you just see things differently, and it's like you've got to unpick your whole life.
Yeah, well, when I wrote that,
You know what's the most weirdest thing, Virtec? Do you know what? With my research, it seems the 1960s is when they actually turned us into a ball, obviously when we went to the moon. And you know what? All the footage we get is, oh, look, we can see the moon. But maybe those people were going, no, we just want to know whether we're flat or not.
Yeah, well, Operation Fishbowl and all that. Yeah.
When that came on as a kid, I remember it looking real. But now when you look at it, it's just the complete opposite.
Well, I remember sitting with my mum as a kid watching that happening. And I took it all in. I believed it.
Oh,
now I look back at it now and think, ew. But there again, you had no frame. There wasn't even calculators when I was at school. Man.
Do you know one thing that people talk about a lot when they're looking into this, that we're frequencies and they're obviously feeding off of us. So it would be really great if more people woke up and that it went the people's way.
Well, I think, like,
because we don't even need them.
that lyric I wrote, a long 30 years ago, and I was younger, and the meaning of the lyric was coming out through a lens. I didn't know what I was actually bloody writing, and now when I look at that lyric, I go, fucking hell, your young self was trying to tell you something. Do you know what I mean? And people should rely upon those moments of intuition when they can really feel the difference between right and wrong, because we're involved in a battle between good and evil.
Sometimes though, when you write things, I have written a few poems, but I can't remember those. Do you want to hear my poem?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I've said it a couple of times on this channel, but it goes, why be afraid of your emotional dealings? Too scared to challenge the thought of true feelings. Confused, abused, done out of losing. You've trapped it inside, abandoned, a bruising. You trapped it inside to make it lie there, from child grown to adult, unable to share. But you see, your eyes are the windows into your soul. and you're stuck behind them like a sard in a bowl. Your eyes say one thing, your mouth says another, and you're too afraid to put one with the other. But you see, you're the rock, forever changing. You have no sides, no bars, and you're always moulding and recreating. But you see, you're the pun, locked deep down inside by fears of past life that nobody knows. So you set your life out in nice little rows, forgetting the reaction of how you react when unspeakingly spoken humans attract, not prepared to jump in the roller coaster ride or the emotional sea tide. But how much are you willing to let go, to share with another, to let a seed grow? That was my poem.
That is great. I love that. I haven't heard that before.
I was 28 when I wrote that.
How old? 28.
But you know what?
Wow, 28. 4 sevens.
The reason I mentioned it was almost like I sat down at the table to try and write something where I've been told I'm thick and useless, like I told you, my education all my life. And then suddenly I started to write this thing. And within 45 minutes, the poem that whole poem fits like an A4, like nearly a whole page. And I wrote all that. And it was like.
But do you feel like it was a spirit that was flowing through you?
Yeah.
You know, like I always say this to musicians, oh, why do we have to practice our scales? And I say, well, when you're practicing your scales, what you're doing is you're polishing your lens so that when you're on stage and it's time for you, so suddenly it's your solo or whatever, you've spent all that time polishing your lens so the cosmic light can shine through that lens out through your instrument. And the same applies to any skill or art form you take up, be it cooking, whittling a stick, whatever it is. If you put the time into practicing your scales, then the cosmic spirit can say, thank you for putting that work in, and it can flow through you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you know, we're all here for just our journey. You know, how's Bill Hicks talk about?
I think it's quite cruel to put us here because if you watch the television way, everything looks like it eternally goes on. Even when they're telling you about death, it's all eternally on. And in reality, it's not like that. We're human beings with hearts, minds, and souls.
Well, yeah, and the Vikings said it's not when you die, it's how you die. And from my point of view, I'm a Viking like that. But what upsets me is the children, because, you know, you've got to care about the life that they're being put into. And if the older ones don't actually fight for the truth of what we know, where, you know, what the children are going to look back and say, well, what did you do to try and protect us? We were just kids. I can say the same thing to my parents, but, you know, you've got to stop it somewhere. Eventually,
yeah, because what it is they're riding with this group of people who believe them. And if those people woke up or put two and two together or even did a bit of their own research, then life is different. How did we get here? We got here because we've done our own research. It doesn't mean you are me and I'm you. We've got different opinions about things, but we're basically talking the same thing.
Well, as I said earlier, very often you're programmed and hypnotized into your state of mind, and sometimes it takes a jolt in your life.
The only sad thing, though, Virtec, there's nowhere to go.
Or a divorce, or you know, some problem like that really knocks you upside the head. And at that point, you've got a chance to actually reevaluate what's going on. But yeah, a lot of people are getting smacked upside the head right now. So,
do you know the bit that gets me, right? Because I'm, a bit of a warrior, I suppose. I knew what was going to happen, but people on my channel are like, yeah, right to the president, that he is a real person and all that. And I sent all these links and I tried to explain it and I said this, whatever, and I said something. And then they did it the bullet, whatever it was, whatever they gave me the strike for, Amy knows. They used that, but I hadn't done that. is the wording I use, but I won't use it because I don't want another strike. But I was just asking who was running things. And yeah. But nothing had really been said. And then they did that, which is a bit crazy, really.
Well, you know, it's
You know,
terrible.
the video wasn't
We all
new.
have,
The
all
video
have
was
to
months
self-censor.
old. It was 6 months, 7 months old.
Well, any excuse, eh?
Yeah, but you know, you don't want to keep getting strikes, do you? Because then you lose your channel.
Well, you know,
Then
it's terrible that we have to self-censor. I know all sorts of stuff, but I can't talk about it. Huh?
no, and you know, like I don't understand. Like even you know, when I went to college, I had to learn all these systems, which we never used anymore. But because that's what the education said, we had to learn that system and that system and that system. And actually, we were going to be learning that system because that's what we did. But we had to go through all those, you know, and it had to become education. And I'm thinking, well, you know, over the years, you know, does it matter in a way what we believe in? Maybe here is what you believe in. Maybe if you want to believe it's a globe, it's a globe, but I don't see it like that. And if you start even just looking at the stars, you start realizing, you know,
Yeah.
it's just, why is that such a threat right now? Because we're being quite censored on YouTube.
Well, you know, it has crossed my mind that between like Bob Nadell and the whole observably flat crew, and then Brexit and England actually getting out of Europe.
Yeah, we thought we'd got somewhere. We thought we'd
Yeah,
got somewhere.
but I think what that's done has threatened the powers that be so badly that that's why they've cranked everything up now.
Mm, well, I did actually wonder, you know, with this speech with Boris, I have actually said, is Boris trying to take over? Is that what's going on with this always high tech and pluralism? And he's trying to take over because Trump's going, I can get really hard. It's not going to London. No, it's not. I'm thinking, is this part of the game though? Because I thought they were all in on this together. So you never, you know, whatever we watch, you have to watch it and think, God, what did I just watch? What did they just say? And then think, no, you've got to divide it by about 8 and then it's okay then.
Yeah. Well, you know, like personally,
And then at the end of
I
it,
haven't had a TV for years.
I
And
don't
so
see any of it as
the
being
binary
real.
system I know is complete propaganda. So
Do you know what? What a load of hard work to make this whole thing. So what it is you get your TV program and you think, the news. But you don't realise that when you get to the news, they've forgotten to give you the manual of the news. So the news now is like a TV program where if you realise they're going subversion, lies, we made it, we're not telling the truth, you wouldn't watch it, would you?
I don't watch it.
No, I don't. I only watch it for the channel because, you know, a bit like, say I decide to pick another subject, like I'm talking to you, so we're going somewhere else today. But then tomorrow I might think, oh, look in my inbox. Let's just have a look at this talk, what's Trump's saying. And then it just happens. It's just every frigging video I look at.
I get mine third hand through safe hands. That's it. That's one advantage we've got is I've been collecting like people and links for the last 20 years, so they can't hide everyone from me. Huh? But anyone who's getting involved right now, God knows how they actually, you know, navigate through the morass of.
You have to be shared, I think, because one of the last videos, I don't know even if it will end up remaining on the channel, but that one must have been shared quite a bit because the return's really good on that one. And there are some where you think the people I put out information that I think people need to know. It's different to you. We're different people. We've got different channels. You know, we do different things. But
yeah, well, mine's a music channel, so. But, you know, I just started it. And just after I started it, they stopped that thing where you could link through to someone's channel from the chat. And that, you know, like that killed me. It just stopped
Yeah, it's really annoying because they say it's changes for the better, but the way I look, no, I like it the way it is. You know, and eBay did it first of all, and I'm not an eBayer anymore. And the only people that made money were eBay, but I started it and I was making money. And then I was in it for about, I don't know, about 8 months, and I was actually making like I was actually making money. And then they changed the search engine and all these things happened. And once they did that, it was like my what do you call it, shop just it flatlined. And that's exactly what's happened with YouTube when they did their changes last year.
I'll tell you what, I've just found this this video that I watched yesterday. It's from the Windows on the World channel, and it's a conversation between Lark from Texas and John Waters from Ireland about commutarianism and the new normal. And it's really a good video. Maybe I can ask you to put it in the details.
Sure. Or, you know,
I'll tell you what, I'll give it to you in the chat now and you can have a look at it.
okay. On Skype, do it Skype one. If you can manage that one. Anyway, Virtec, it's been quite interesting. We did go and you actually asked me what did I think was happening. I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, who is? I think, you know, you've got to prepare for the worst and expect the best.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster.
Isn't it? But the main thing is that our community must stick together. It's very important.
And do you know something else in the middle of all this? Lee took me over to Hyde Park, and Primrose Hill is a pyramid, or it's something like that. It's got a capstone on the top of it. So all those people who feel quite happy up there don't realise they're sitting on something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is probably a pyramid. And do you know what? Buckingham Palace out there had a pyramid too, because saw these drawings. They put Windsor Castle, and in a way, Windsor Castle was almost like a double of Buckingham Palace originally. And next to Windsor Castle is the mound, which is still there, and next to Buckingham Palace there was a mound.
Yeah, well,
and then I can't believe it that these pyramids are in all castles all over the UK. It's like, it's not just that there's one an hour away from me called Silbury Hill. There's all these castles that have got them. It's like, what didn't we see originally?
Well, King's Road is a ley line. The ley line runs right down King's Road, Chelsea, which is interesting.
Hey, if it's true, 3 ley lines match up outside my house. The one that comes from Stonehenge. Also, I find it quite incredible. Maria Wheatley said that ley lines actually are man-made, they're man-made. It's like they trod them. I don't quite know how they did it through the seas then, but supposing Avery matches up with Egypt. So in a sense, it's really strange. Not Avery, Silbury Hill. And that's really strange because they say it's the motherboard of the whole thing. It's one of the oldest pyramids ever. That one. It's like,
I once, in my youth, went with an American violinist up Glastonbury Tor on full moon and sat in the top at midnight, and we jammed on recorder and violin and the top of. Back in the day, then you could get into things like that. It wasn't all fenced off. We still had our country. Huh?
Do you know what's really weird about that? That is just a tower up there. I can't tell you when it came. You know, we don't even understand what Tartaria is, but what it was is my story of it before I was a flat earther was that we were told, or the story was that originally there was water there, but that piece of land with a church stood out of the water, and then everybody sailed to it. And I thought, oh, okay. And in a sense, they have sort of moored up the land down there by Weymouth and all that. And you think, yeah, okay, yeah, I get that. But what I realised was because the pyramid, I think it's a pyramid, that Glastonbury tour as well, because these people were doing their what do you call it? When they go up, what do you call them? The man, oh, what do you call them? Drones.
Oh, drones. Yeah,
They're going up with a drone, but what it's done is, because everywhere else is much lower, right? The morning mist, which is like a cloud now, has gone over all the land, and as the camera goes up, I thought, when you see it, I made a video about it. When you see it from this angle, and they're all supposed to be sailing to the church, where are they sailing from? So I already knew there's a problem as a flat earther. Where are they sailing from? Because at the top of that hill, you're much higher up there than anywhere down there. There's nowhere to sail from. They're all under the water. Somerset, everything would be all underwater.
Yeah, maybe where's the nearest?
So they've told us that it's a church up
Dartmoor,
there, and they
isn't
sail
Dartmoor
to
a
it.
bit higher?
When actually it's a pyramid or a pyramid-like structure with a tower on the top. I mean, just tell me that if the water came there and there was a church on the top, it'd be so steep to get up there, or the church would have covered the whole piece of that land. And it's like, how could it hold? It's not very big, but there definitely is a tower there. And towers seem to play a big part. It doesn't matter whether they're tall or small, everything's in towers. Lots and lots of towers on the buildings. Buckingham Palace is a tower with towers, even if they're small.
All the medieval tech needs towers, doesn't it?
It's quite crazy, really. Yeah, I wonder what they really knew that we just don't quite get yet.
Well, there's people looking like John Levy and Martin Nico.
I did all that as well, right? It's a bit spooky, really. I realised that the Tsar of Russia was actually Queen Victoria's son. He was double rolling. And then when I looked at the footage, a lot of it was just this mechanical mash that I see, and I thought, no, not here. And then I realised that they did the same thing. What they did was, no matter that it was on different cinematography, the film and that, they sped it up like they did with the NASA. So, when you slow NASA down, they're just walking. When you speed it up, it's like they did the same thing with the 1800s. Then I'm looking at it, that when you slowed it down, you're looking, and I'm thinking, there's a lot more different, we're supposed to be living in a white society and all that. So if there's any black or coloured people, then they're slaves, but they weren't. They were in the footage. It's like and then you realise they've masked over these people. And I actually worked out, when we looked at the pictures, I did a video on it. When you saw any coloured people dressed in suits, they looked happy. When you saw us dressed in suits, we looked unhappy. The white people looked unhappy, but they looked happy. So I was thinking, was it the other way round? Was it we were being ruled by them? We were the slaves. It's very hard to tell what anything is anymore.
Well, that's why I'm into making music and summoning up cosmic spirit.
Yeah, and putting some spirit into it.
Because the rest of it is a load of bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah.
And they're just trying to distract us from being creative. And we're really creative, loving people. And they're doing their best to stop us being creative, loving people. And we're not going to put up with it.
But one of the best ways to start is to turn the television off. Once you do that, you just don't realise that you start thinking for yourself.
Exactly.
You've got to know who you are as a person.
I've had one for years, Karen.
You've got to know who you are as a person as well, because if you don't know who you are, you'll never believe anything that's said and keep going in the wrong places.
I came across this nice sort of conception the other day, which is, like as a musician, you're all into do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. That's the scale. And there's 7 notes, and the 8th note is the octave. And there are 7 chakras in your body. And the top chakra is actually the corona chakra, which they're trying to take the piss out of. But if you go from the bottom chakra up to the corona chakra, The next one up is the octave, and that is your divine heavenly connection.
Yeah, and do you know
And,
something?
and let me finish. If you go from the top, from the corona down, the 7 notes, then you add the 8th note is Mother Earth. And we need to actually anchor into Mother Earth on the bottom, up through our 7 chakras, out
Yeah, I agree with you.
to heaven. And it's the musician's wisdom to
But you've
actually
also
say
got to be
this, because it's
careful.
the musical truth.
When you say that, if you open up your chakras, you've always got to close them down. You never leave them open, because that's when you let things in.
Well, talking about chakras, actually, when in my 20s, I really got into meditation. And there's this book called The Secret of the Golden Flower, which is a translation from, like, at least whatever it is, 2,000 years ago, Taoist philosophy. And the same guy that actually translated the original I Ching, or I Ching, however you want to say it, Richard Wilhelm, he translated The Secret of the Golden Flower. And there was a method of meditation in there which involved picturing energy coming through your chakra, down through your spine, and then up round the body through the other 7 chakras and up to the top. And what you had to do was breathe, listen to your heart. You had to calm down enough to actually hear your heartbeat. And then you timed 7 heartbeats, breathe in. 1 heartbeat, hold. 7 heartbeats, breathe out. And by doing that, you're creating a circular light through your body. And what they say that circular light is a spiritual womb into which the divine can be born inside you, which is, there's this expression, die before you die, because what you're doing is, by behaving like that and doing that practice, you're creating the divine self inside yourself. So like for a 20-year-old, that was pretty heavy, and I got into it. I tell you what, I've never been so high in my life. I find it hard to be that disciplined to do it now, but I did do it for a few years, and I think it made a very big difference.
Do you think when you wake up a bit that, you know, when it's like, you know, like say if I was just this materialistic person, right, and the things that interested me, but when you wake up, different things become more important, and things that you used to value are no value anymore. So it's a bit like, you know, it's like sometimes you get rid of things and life
Well,
becomes more
I think
simple.
that, but I also remember like periods in my youth when I was really on the right track, and I was hit upside the head by life.
I know it's a bit of a disappointment, isn't it? I think we don't realise it's your best. If you've got really lovely parents, the best time of your life would be a kid till you got to about 7 or 8 or something. That's what would be best. The nicest parents you could ever have, so that at least that bit would be wonderful until you hit 8 or 9.
I tried, but
I'm not sure if it's
attack
hell
on
here. It
the
might
attack
be
on
hell, because
the.
why put us in this place where you can't create hills and grass, and you can't create the sun and the air and the water? We're living in this supernatural place where on the television everything lasts forever, but we don't.
Well, there's been an attack on family values ever since I was born, man. It's been, it used to be that it was God, father, mother, children. There was an order to the world, and that has been attacked viciously now for the last 50 years. And which is, there used to be happy families.
You know what? Are you sure it's not this way? It's like every time the people wake up, they have to be reset so that they don't. It's a bit like a lot of people right now. What the hell is going on? Like, we all are, but you know what I mean. Without knowing that there's another. So many. If they just open their eyes, like.
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe Karen, you're right there, and it's another thing that's crossed my mind, that maybe we always come back into this environment, and there's always the bad guys and the good guys, and it's like a cosmic quiz. Are you going to get it this time round, or aren't you? And when you eventually get it, then maybe you don't have to go through this rubbish anymore.
Yeah. Can I just say, Virtec, we've been going for an hour and a half.
Oh my God, really?
It's been very interesting talk. And
it's a pleasure to talk to you, my dear. It really is.
Yeah, it has. And yeah. And
thank you everyone in chat for listening to us. We do appreciate it, and there's nothing like the community that we have on chat to actually bring us all together. So
oh, that's a very nice thing to say. Virtec, chat room. Thanks for listening.
All right, good night all.
Use your head if you can't get to learn the land. Comprehensive to the fullest, so you understand. Get to know your body works. I know that you can. To avoid the toxics.